Part 89. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 882. Chapter 882. Is there still a reward? At this moment, Twilight Rain listened to the wind and only had a strong sense of admiration in the heart of Xiao organization. The president who could think of managing a guild in this way was definitely a genius. But in the same way, Twilight listening to the wind is also thinking about the reproducibility of this benefit. However, she thought about it and finally chose to give up, because she didn't have that kind of cooking skills and didn't have that kind of energy. 057. Since you have chosen to give out benefits, you can't do it once or twice, but you have to stick to it for a long time, so that you can convince the members of the guild and become a major feature of the guild. But the cost of doing so is really too high, not ordinary people can play, and it doesn't have such a good taste. How can the other guild members be satisfied with it? Therefore, after thinking about it carefully, Twilight listening to the wind did not choose to reproduce Lu Shu's approach. Just appreciate it. Satisfied, a full meal. Twilight burped at the sound of the wind, and suddenly felt that her calculation ability seemed to have been enhanced. Is this the function of food? Twilight was a little surprised when she heard the wind, and when she took the first sip, she didn't think the effect was so good. Now I feel like I am in hindsight. Therefore, she was even more satisfied with this, and her evaluation of Xiao organization couldn't help but be higher again. Well, I really don't know what kind of god this mysterious guild leader is, and he can manage the guild in such a way. Twilight listened to the wind and sighed. To be honest, as the president, this kind of thinking is simply subversive for Twilight listening to the wind himself. She never thought that she could rely on these simple little benefits, which directly made the members of the Xiao organization extremely satisfied, which was what Lu Shu's approach made him admire the most. At this moment, a message panel suddenly popped up in front of Twilight listening to the wind, and it turned out to be the core members of the guild of the Xiao organization, who began to apply to add themselves as friends. At this moment, Twilight suddenly felt some pride in her heart. It seemed that it was because of her identity as a big man, so the core members would take the initiative to add themselves. There is still some value in proving it. However, the president didn't add friends. Twilight pouted lightly when she heard the wind, but thinking that the strength of this president was so strong, and he could even slaughter gods, it was estimated that he was not playing the same game as himself, and it was reasonable not to add it, so he could only snort coldly and put his eyes back on the friend application list. One by one, I passed the application and became new friends. Although Twilight Rain has also grown up, there are still relatively few people who can get her friend's position. As the president of the guild, of course, he will not add some messy people, such as birds that cherish their feathers, and do not allow the slightest filth to appear around them. After accepting the invitation of his friend, at this moment, Xiao Chang'an took the initiative to send a message, and 0.5 popped up the chat panel. Xiao Chang'an, Lord Muji, are you interested in joining our special operations team and working together to complete the bounty mission of the Xiao organization? Twilight Rain was slightly stunned when she heard the wind. What the hell is the bounty task? Soon, she switched to the guild panel and found that the president of the Xiao organization had also released a bounty column. It's a special mission, and there's a reward. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 883. Chapter 883 was completely shocked. Twilight listened to the wind and took a closer look. I was taken aback. She found that the bounties above were basically going to points with high coordinates. These are all places that Dusk Pavilion can't reach. Do you mean? Twilight Rain has a bold guess in her heart. In the Divine Tree world, there has never been any information about the Xiao organization, and no data has been collected on the relevant bosses. Actually, this is not particularly reasonable. Because, at present, in the world of the Divine Tree, high-end dungeons are basically very sought after, and everyone is waiting to raid these dungeons and obtain a large number of resources. In this case, as long as you are a Divine Tree Master who has always wanted to become stronger, you will have to go to the more difficult dungeon to get a reward. But from beginning to end, it seems that there is rarely any information about the Xiao organization, coming from the place, including Xiao Chang'an, Prodigal Sword, and others. Isn't that an explanation? In fact, their strategy coordinates have reached a level that other Divine Tree Masters can't cover. So, the other Divine Tree Masters couldn't catch their tracks? Thinking about it carefully, this kind of thing seems to be very possible. After all, the Xiao organization is so powerful, and the scope of their exploration has long exceeded the upper limit of ordinary Divine Tree Masters, and everyone can't even capture their figures, so where does the information come from? Thinking of this, Twilight Rain felt that this organization was extremely terrifying, and she couldn't help but shudder. There are also hermit organizations in other areas, but they are generally able to do so on the basis of deliberately concealing and suppressing information. He has great strength and is not discovered by other Divine Tree Masters. But Xiao organization is an exception. Judging from the information currently available, this mysterious guild has never hidden its whereabouts. It's just that none of the other Divine Tree Masters in the Divine Tree world are qualified to capture the traces of this guild's existence. That's why none of the Divine Tree Masters have ever received any information about them. This made Twilight Rain feel very surprised. She never expected that this batch of dark horses on the list would come out like this. It's completely beyond my imagination. But Twilight Rain actually has some doubts. With such high coordinates, relying on the strength of the current Divine Tree Master, can you really attack these dungeons? Have you completed any of these bounties? Twilight couldn't help but ask this question. Actually, the meaning of this is a little unbelievable. After all, the coordinates in the bounty list are really too low, and they are not at all something that ordinary Divine Tree Masters can see. If you really attack these dungeons, will it end up in the destruction of the whole army? 790. Moreover, it is not yet known what the reward of the Akatsuki organization is. Completing these quests with such a risk feels like you're going to die in a minute. The core members of the Xiao organization immediately saw the careful thinking of Twilight Rain, and without saying a word, they directly released the memory video of the previous attack on the ruins of the Law God. Memory videos can't be faked, and the information inside will be conveyed authentically. Hearing is false and seeing is believing. As for what is going on, Twilight Rain will know by listening to the wind and seeing for herself. Sure enough, after opening the video, Twilight listened to the wind and was immediately shocked by the picture inside. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 884. Chapter 884 is even cooler. In the Divine Tree world, there are such strong people, it is simply beyond my expectations. The moment Twilight heard the wind and saw the video, she only felt as if she was completely shocked. The picture inside, if any scene is put in the forum of the Grey World, it is comparable to an epic picture. Don't be too scary. What level of monster is this, capable of reaching this level? Twilight listened to the wind and felt a little doubtful about life. Not to mention the Guild of the Dusk Rain Pavilion, even if she went over by herself, facing a monster of this level would be extremely dangerous, and if she was not careful, she would end up in a catastrophe. Even if you can teleport back to your Divine Tree Island in time. However, teleportation also takes time. Such a dangerous monster, I'm afraid it's going to be seconds in a second. How can it be reflected? This level of dungeon is something that is difficult for even those who are at the top of the Divine Tree world to explore. But Xiao organization has this strength. So, this is the most shocking part of Twilight Rain. As she continued to watch the rest of the video, she gradually realized that the copies seemed to be even more terrifying than she had imagined. Especially after entering the library. A large number of god-level enemies have all emerged. Listening to the wind, Twilight only felt that his three views had been violently impacted. Wait, these monsters seem to have god-level strength, this is too fierce, right? Although it doesn't seem to be as powerful as Luo Shui, but with so many monsters combined, even Luo Shui may not be easier to deal with than this kind of thing. So, now the strength of the Xiao organization is enough to fight against god-level enemies. This is simply too powerful. Twilight listened to the wind and realized how powerful the guild she had entered was. Even this Dusk Rain pavilion of hers is completely incomparable compared to the other party's guild. Twilight Rain only felt ridiculous in her heart. At the beginning, she even laughed at the relatively small number of members of this guild, but she didn't know that the quality of the people could completely crush her Twilight Pavilion. Just for this Dharma God ruins, even if the entire army of the Dusk Rain Pavilion is dispatched, if it enters a copy of this level, it will only end up being annihilated. There can't be any other possibility. Thinking of this, Twilight Rain felt even more terrifying about the Xiao organization, and every member here actually had such a powerful strength, beyond the scope of his own understanding. It's a chance. Twilight listening to the wind instantly captures the key problem. The members of the Xiao organization definitely didn't have such a strong power from the beginning. If they were really that powerful, then they wouldn't have been defeated by Lu Shu on the Divine Tree Island, and then pulled into this guild. In this case, the answer may only be one possibility. Because they joined the guild of the Xiao organization and gained great strength, they were able to improve their strength so quickly and reach the peak state of the Divine Tree world. And these rewards may be guild bounties obtained by exploring these dungeons. In terms of the strength of the Xiao organization guild, the benefits for guild members are all set, not to mention the rewards. It's definitely going to be even cooler than the guild benefits. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 885. Chapter 885 It's like a dream. Wait, you're saying I can join your team? Twilight felt a little incredulous. After all, she had just joined the Akatsuki Guild. I actually got the weight of these bigwigs. Wait a minute. The idea. Twilight Rain couldn't help but feel strange in her heart. She was originally the pavilion master of Twilight Rain Pavilion. She should have a high status. How could she be so easy to live under others? However, there are too many bigwigs in the Xiao organization guild, and all of them are famous figures. Even a powerhouse of this level in the Dark Knight was defeated by this guy and became one of them. At this time, 920 Dan, anyone with a normal brain, would not look at the Xiao organization with a condescending gaze, but was very aware of his own insignificance, and realized that this guild had extraordinary places. Of course. The prodigal sword nodded and said, "You are the pavilion master of the Dusk Rain Pavilion, and you are already a level of character with the Night Boss, isn't it a matter of course to join our core members?" NLE smiled. It seems that the strength of our team has been greatly improved because of the addition of this girl. Xiao Chang'an sighed with emotion. I didn't expect our Xiao organization to have the Dusk Rain Pavilion join so soon. This is really an undreaming thing. Hearing that the members here were all boasting about themselves like this, Twilight suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Hurriedly said, where, you are the big guy, I am just the newcomer of this guild." The members of the other Xiao organizations were relieved by this. This guild had such a charm. No matter how powerful the big man was, he was very humble here. It's a really relaxing atmosphere. Xiao Chang'an said with a smile, "The pavilion master is humble, you are still the famous second in the Divine Tree world. Who doesn't know your name? It is comparable to one person and above 10,000 people, we thought we would want you to be more tolerant. Twilight listened to the wind and heard the call of Baya again, and was a little speechless. Can this pot not be opened? In any case, the Xiao organization now has the addition of Twilight listening, which must be a better thing for this guild. Not to mention that the strength of Twilight listening to the wind itself is relatively strong, and the intelligence ability of Twilight Pavilion is definitely one of the best in the Divine Tree world. What's more, there are still many Divine Tree Masters in the Dusk Pavilion who have strong potential and qualifications. Of course, this is a good thing for Xiao organization. One more solid and reliable ally. One less target who may be able to find out his own intelligence. If the Dusk Pavilion is allowed to continue to develop, it may be possible to get the information of the Xiao organization. After all, the Grey Realm is not infinite. As the Divine Tree Master continues to develop, the gap in strength between them will be further narrowed. Then, sooner or later, the activities of the Xiao organization will be dug up by these big guilds. However, it doesn't matter by that time. After all, the current Twilight Pavilion is already a subordinate guild of the Xiao organization. Even in terms of size, the other guilds can't even compare to the Dusk Rain Pavilion, let alone the current Xiao organization. Twilight took a deep breath as she listened to the wind, and she was also very excited. It's like a dream. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 886. Chapter 886, The Expression of Comprehension. Joining the Xiao organization, maybe I can see a different side of the Divine Tree world. Twilight thought to herself as she listened to the wind. She is now completely open-minded, gradually accepting the facts, and at the same time beginning to face up to the existence of the Xiao organization. Since there is such a powerful guild, maybe you can take yourself to see a wider world. To be honest, stay on your own sacred tree island all day, and then it's time to get all kinds of information from the Dusk Rain Pavilion. It's so boring. Life seems to have lost its enthusiasm. But now, Twilight Rain has encountered such a change in the wind, as if she suddenly senses that life has become motivated again. Just like when you first managed and created the Dusk Pavilion. At that time, Twilight listened to the wind, and in order to be able to live better in the Divine Tree world, she had to take on this responsibility, and then became stronger and stronger. But in the later stages, she lost more and more of her original motivation, became a little confused, and didn't know what to do. Although he is the pavilion master of the Twilight Rain Pavilion, his life seems to lack motivation. Every day, I deal with some things, use the deduction method to see what dungeon to attack, calculate the expenses of the guild, the recent profits, and the resources in the warehouse. And then, day by day. These tasks, when I have goals and motivation at the beginning, and when I have dreams, I feel that I am not boring at all, and I see that I am getting stronger every day, and every day is full of vigorous vitality and motivation. But as the days gradually lengthened, these things that she had long been accustomed to no longer had such high returns, and she had been sitting in the position of the Dusk Rain Pavilion for a long time. In addition, after experiencing the open and secret battles of various Divine Tree Masters, I can't help but feel tired and too lazy to set foot in this river and lake again. But if they don't continue to operate, how will these members of the guild eat? She listened to the name of the wind in the Twilight Rain, and the Twilight Rain Pavilion that had been in business for so long, didn't she just don't want it? Of course, this is also impossible. Therefore, Twilight Rain still chose to persevere. This is the path she has chosen. Keep doing it no matter what. It's just that I lost my original enthusiasm and felt that it wasn't so energetic. They have all reached such heights that they can no longer continue to progress, so they will feel that the enthusiasm for life is fading, and the days are becoming more and more boring and boring. However, the arrival of Lu Shu seems to have changed all this, making Twilight listen to the wind and realize that he is actually very small, Not as powerful as he imagined. And the Dusk Rain Pavilion is not the #1 guild in the Divine Tree world, and in front of the Xiao organization, it is actually nothing. Even Dark Knight and Yu Suanji are just ordinary members in this guild, let alone her listening to the wind in the Twilight Rain. Therefore, Twilight listening to the wind now gradually feels that she has regained her purpose and motivation, to become stronger, to recognize more strong people in this world, and to find the truth. Okay, I promise to act with you. If there is anything you need my help in the future, please give me a lot of advice. Twilight listened to the wind and directly chose to agree, and the core members of the guild took the initiative to invite themselves to a budding newcomer. What is the reason to refuse? Xiao Chang'an and the others looked at each other and smiled, all showing expressions of understanding. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 887. Chapter 887, the last time the tree people were only a few hundred million. Finally, the island war of this Grey Realm invasion has ended. Xiao Chang'an, Prodigal Sword, and others, of course, survived the island battle without danger and were safe. The rest of the members of the Xiao organization are basically fine. After all, if they swallow the food given by Lu Shu, even if it is just a benefit, they can unlock the values related to the divine attributes. 233. Of course, he would not be afraid of being wiped out by other ordinary level divine tree masters. Even if they encounter the divine tree master, they may have 2 brushes, but they can at least hold the island, and there is still a lower limit. After the battle for the sacred tree islands. Finally, another quarter of the Grey World ranking gang is about to be announced. All the divine tree masters are looking forward to and paying attention to this issue. The survivors have opened forums, and there are tens of thousands of barrages every minute, frantically scrolling on the world's public screens. Godeo is invincible. As long as he keeps going, I believe that one day I can see the end of the divine tree world. Upstairs, can you say something good? Do you want to see the end of the world so much? Do you have any problems in your heart? Well, if you want to think about the good place, maybe after the end, you will return to reality. It seems that this is also a possible thing. Alas, although being alive is alive, but then you have to face an even more dangerous invasion of the Grey World. Why is life so difficult? The ranking is finally going to be announced. You can see which big guys are up again. Blind guess: the first is the Tree Man, and the second is the Twilight Rain, and listen to the wind. Ha, a 10,000-year-old first, a 10,000-year-old second. Do you still need to guess? It must be. Finally, we happily discussed, as if as long as we talk about the rankings, there are endless topics. Countless forums are rising again. There are also quite a few divine tree masters who open the market. The bet is on the ranking of these divine tree masters and what position they can reach. They're into. You don't have to look at the odds of the Tree Man. Even if you take the entire family property into it, you won't make much money. Since so many times, it is the Tree Man who has won the first place, and everyone knows that this master is definitely the first place. Full of tree people, villas by the sea. YYDS. I don't know if the big guy can break through the billion-point mark this time, but this multiplier is only 1.5, which is not very profitable. Haha, if you want to see it, you can see 10 billion, even if it is a Tree Man, there is a 5-fold multiplier. 10 billion is only 5 times. If it is changed to the Twilight Rain and listening to the wind, wouldn't the multiplier be increased to 50 times? Tisk, what you say? You are a little disrespectful to the Pavilion Master. Be careful of being found by the people of the Twilight Rain Pavilion. It doesn't matter, Twilight Pavilion is not messing around. Just like the previous Dark Knight Alliance, Miss Twilight, listening to the wind is so generous, why 1.1 may not be able to get along with the folk gossip about us. That's right, how long have we been called the second child of 10,000 years, and I haven't seen the Lord of Mu Pavilion and us, and I really can't get along. Bet on it, go straight to the stud, I want to bet that the tree man can break through 10 billion. Upstairs, you're too ruthless, 10 billion can't be broken through casually, and the last time the tree man was only a few 100 million. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 888. Chapter 888 Bet for the first time. These news from the divine tree world immediately frightened everyone else. 10 billion points? This is no joke. The points at this level are already 10 times that of the last time. Even if it is as strong as a big guy on the list, but to achieve this point, it will be a huge breakthrough for himself. In the back, as the level of the monsters in the gray world continues to increase. In fact, it also vaguely touched the upper limit of the threshold that most divine tree masters could reach. After 1 billion, even if the tree people can break through again, but when it reaches about 2 billion or 3 billion, it should be more than 18, right? What the hell is 10 billion? This is outrageous. The divine tree masters present all thought that this old brother was a lie at first. How could someone really pledge their entire net worth and put their own property in the hands of other divine tree masters? Although he is a tree man, he has to bet too much, and this condition makes people feel that it is not something that can be achieved under normal circumstances. But when they opened the handicap and saw that the multiplier on it had changed, according to the calculation, it seemed that someone really bet on the net worth of the tree man. So the odds have changed. It turned out to be true. Is there really anyone who is so superstitious about the tree man, thinking that he is omnipotent and can even break through 10 billion? Many divine tree masters began to laugh one after another. Ha 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 ha, this guy is too brainless, he really spent so many assets to invest in a condition that is impossible to achieve. I don't know if it's stupid, or if it's funny. Don't say it. I checked it and found that he is still the president of a medium guild, and he seems to be quite powerful. It's still the president. Don't you want this guild? Don't you want it? You can transfer it to me, thank you. What the hell is it to directly press all your value into it? Sit back and wait for the guild members to see the president run away. The members of this guild are definitely wronged, and they are worthy of such a president. Tisk. Sit back and wait for this guild to go bankrupt. As the president, you should also take care of the salaries of many subordinates, and directly press all your worth into it. What do you think? Don't say anything, I'll just wait to see the joke. Does any brother want to go and bet on it, play with that big guy? I'm not that stupid, even if it's a packet of primary fertilizer, I think it's useful, why waste it so much? Hardly any of the divine tree masters present were optimistic about this risky gambling behavior. Therefore, even if this big guy spends a lot of assets to bet on the tree man, he can break through 10 billion points. The other divine tree master 990 didn't even have the heart to join in the fun, so they directly chose to stay away. And the handicap of the bet did not change much because of this small fluctuation, which led to much change in the odds. Basically, there are still very few divine tree masters who think that the tree man can break through 10 billion points, let alone really take out a large amount of assets to bet on these handicaps. You only have to be a person of faith to choose to do this, right? In fact, the president of this small guild has actually been a fan of the tree man for a long time, and he dreams of reaching this height one day. So, after the opening, he bets for the first time. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 889. Chapter 889 has finally begun. Well, people more or less have faith, and sometimes they do something more passionate for the sake of faith, which is actually understandable. For example, this guild boss directly stood and put 1 million on the body of the tree man, betting that he could get 10 billion points, which is actually for the faith in his heart. He thinks that the tree man is invincible, he can do anything. What is wrong with the stud? Such a high odds, maybe he will make money by blood. But even if it is a loss, but these actions you have done have caused such a wide discussion in the divine tree world and become famous, your own actions will definitely be known by the tree cultivators. That's the equivalent of being famous. How honorable is it to let idols know what they're doing? And that guild boss actually knows that this broken guild created by himself doesn't even have a master of less than 1,000, and if you want a top master like the tree man to notice, it is completely impossible to achieve without paying a price. Therefore, he resolutely chose to spend 1 million, and the goal was not to completely lose the biggest reward, just to get the tree man, which may have a little bit of attention. Even if it is only the size of a sesame seed, this old brother feels that his approach is worth it, and his life is completely complete. Of course. This guild leader really thinks so in his heart, and he is happy enough to spend this asset. But the ordinary members of the guild don't think so. They all sent private messages to other guild members in private, scolding this president for being afraid that there was something serious in his brain, and that he would do such a stupid thing, and he simply didn't want the guild. I wish I could run away immediately today, and go ashore tomorrow. As for how to drown in the sea, it is better than stepping on this ghost ship with no future. Anyway, many people in the current divine tree world are also discussing this god-rich man who spends a lot of money. Popularity and topicality are at least enough. Most people in the divine tree world have mixed opinions, but most of them are disparagement. After all, there are still a considerable number of divine tree masters who have no money, and they can't wait for this huge asset to be their own, and they have been scolding them for using their resources like this. It is better to give it to the dog, and it is better to give it to themselves. It seems that with these words full of indignation and fierce words, you can fully prove your superiority and that you are a wise person. Emotions were directly driven by a wave. In addition to the plate of the tree man, there are also many people who bet on the plate of the twilight rain and listening to the wind, but they are all betting on the second of 10,000 years. Although the odds are a little higher than those of the tree man, there are still not so many people who think that twilight rain can stabilize the second position, and choose to vote for the tree man. And the leaderboard of the divine tree world is about to open now. It is now announced that the ranking of the invasion of the second King Zhao will be announced from this moment on. Divine Tree Master who successfully makes it to the list will receive extraordinary rewards from the divine tree world. I hope that in the future games, you can exert more powerful strength, compete for the list, and become stronger and stronger. Let's start with 100 and gradually announce the list. With this familiar and pleasant sound of the announcement, it reverberated throughout the venue. It's finally started. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 890. Chapter 890, have you reached the 10 million level? Soon, with the announcement of the Divine Tree World Rankings, all the Divine Tree Masters felt extremely excited and began to discuss one after another. Wow, 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 it's finally started. I don't know which bigwigs will be on the list this time. Tisk, this time my points have reached 10 million, I don't know if there is a chance to be on the leaderboard. Wow, it's 10 million, that's too awesome, right? I remember the previous points, 10 million is already the first place. But now 10 million wants to be on the list, thinking too much, it should be ranked outside 1,000. Yes, the world of the Divine Tree has really become more and more 407 and more rolled, and there are more and more big guys of all kinds, and it is so difficult to get on the list. The Divine Tree Masters discussed it one after another, and they were all extremely curious about what kind of powerhouse would come to the rankings. At this moment, the Grey World finally began to be announced. In fact, it is no different from before. It's still starting from the 100th place, and it's slowly being announced. However, this time, the 100th score has run to 100 million. This really shocked most of the Divine Tree Masters. Because, they didn't expect that the 100th had already reached the bibbed number of a small goal. In the first few Grey World invasions, this number is enough to touch the threshold of the top 3, or even the first. But this time, even the tail of the crane has this number, so you can imagine how terrifying the competitive pressure of the Divine Tree World is. This is terrible. What kind of big guy is this? Why are there 100 of them who got 100 million? It's too outrageous, right? I thought that I would be able to get a few million now, which is already a very good result, but I never expected that these top bosses would reach such a terrifying level, and it is not comparable to me at all. Don't expect to be on the list, you can live in this world, that's good. Woo woo. If these big guys match my little spicy chicken in the Divine Tree Island War, then they must be merciful. My Divine Tree will definitely not be able to provide any ability for the other party. Alas, the days of the Grey World are really getting more and more rolled. The Divine Tree Masters couldn't help but collectively sigh, feeling as if a big stone was pressing down on their hearts. Seeing the world of the strong, many people will yearn for it and feel that they can get everything. But I saw that people were not only stronger, but also faster in progress. This is a desperate thing. Sometimes, hard work can't make up for anything, and the gap brought about during this period is simply terrible, and it is not for people to see at all. And with the ranking announced to the 90th. However, the points are still locked at about 100 million. Did not break through to 200 million. This still made the Divine Tree Masters present breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it's okay, about 90 is still 100 million, it seems that although the upper limit at the end has indeed been raised, the gap in the front row has not been too wide with the back. Upstairs, your idea seems to be a little wrong. According to this reason, it may be less than 100, and there are many Divine Tree Masters with similar scores, locked in this rank. Your competitive pressure will only be greater. Yes, have you reached the level of 10 million? Woo woo, stop scolding. Planting trees for all, 3 consecutive SSS-level talents at the beginning. Author, Immortal. Chapter 891. Chapter 891, My Heart is Cold. Everyone saw that the Divine Tree World was so rolled, such a high score, and only had such a low ranking, and they couldn't help but feel cold in their hearts. At this time, the Divine Tree Masters who could still survive more or less had 2 brushes. You know, this is a group of billions of people who can successfully survive the test of the rules of the game. Their strength is completely different from when they first joined the Divine Tree World 097. Therefore, these Divine Tree Masters have a stronger competitiveness. And every time the competition in the rankings will be stronger than the last time. Everybody's getting stronger. The most desperate thing is that others may become stronger faster. This is the scariest part. As the rankings continue to be announced. Finally, by the 75th time, the points finally exceeded 200 million. But the names that appeared later received wide attention from the Divine Tree Masters. These bigwigs seem to be in the top 30 of the rankings before, and they are all famous bigwigs, but now how can they appear in the ranking of about 70? Yes. And when I look at the integral interval between these names, it seems to be getting bigger and bigger. Normal, as long as it reaches a relatively high level, then the difference in strength will be obvious. The group of people at the end of the leaderboard, the scores will be closer together, but the terrible thing is that when it comes to the group of people behind, the score gap will only be bigger than one another. Yes, at the top level, the gap between them will get bigger and bigger, to the point of being extremely obvious. Alas, the world of the divine tree is really too rolly, and all of them are big guys. That's true. I used to be able to rank around 105, but now I am directly 500 away, and my people are numb. Upstairs was surprised to see the Versailles boss. Nearly 100 true gods, ask a friend to worship. Finally, the ranking has passed the number of about 5 scholars. However, the subsequent ranking increase shocked the collective divine tree master. It has reached more than 500 million figures. This increase is simply not too outrageous. When many divine tree masters saw such a high number, they could only look at it and sigh. I feel that with the beginning of the game, the gap between the divine tree masters can be said to be getting bigger and bigger. Many people actually had the dream of being on the list, but now after recognizing the reality, they have chosen to become a salted fish. I feel that this list has nothing to do with me anymore. The competitive pressure is too great, and the gap is too great. It seems that if you try your best to work hard, the gap will only get bigger and bigger than others. Some of the strong people who were still on the list, many of them have also become all living beings. Looking at the list that once appeared, their minds are full of memories of the original honor, but now they have to become so powerful, it seems that it is an impossible thing. But the attentive divine tree master also found a problem. Many divine tree masters who were previously stable within 30 or 1.6 have now fallen. Many bigwigs are very puzzled by this. If that's the case, then it means that there are quite a number of divine tree masters sprinting in front of them. And the number is not as small as 1 or 2. It's a dozen. This has a huge impact on the gap in the leaderboard.